All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our Explore session today. I guess we can just go ahead and jump right into it. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So since this is a Teams live event, you won't be able to use your audio or video, but you can still ask us questions in the Q&A chat function throughout the presentation, and either I or someone will chat respond to your question. At the end of the presentation, there will be some contact information about us if you want to follow up. And for anyone who was not able to make the live presentation today, it is going to be recorded and posted on our website for you guys to follow up and take a look at the presentation if you want to. And our purpose of these Explore sessions is to kind of feature a different region each week. So next week, we're going to be featuring Europe 2, which will be looking at Italy, Malta, Switzerland, Spain, and Austria. So you can check that out. It's at the same time every week, so 2:30 p.m. next Thursday. All right, let's get started. So today we're going to be exploring the UK. To introduce myself, my name is Jessica, and I went to the University of Southampton in England. I did it this winter semester 2020, and I am studying psychology. We should be getting a past participant who will come and kind of talk about her experiences, and she'll probably be joining us a bit later in the presentation. So today our presentation is going to land in England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. So let's take off. And first we're going to be exploring England. So exploring England means afternoon tea. So something that the British do is afternoon tea. It's kind of a British tradition. And it's like an after lunch, before dinner kind of tea and snacks around 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And it's basically just tea with some small snacks like croissants, scones, cookies, and small sandwiches, things like that. Another kind of staple of England is Buckingham Palace, which is the official administrative headquarters of the royal family of the United Kingdom. And it's a really big tourist attraction when you go to London. I think everyone who goes to London probably wants to visit the palace because it's really, really pretty. Also a little fun fact, so a Union flag kind of flies over the Buckingham Palace, and when it's up in the air, that means the Queen is not in the palace, so it's kind of cool to know like when and when she isn't kind of in the palace. A third thing is fish and chips, which is kind of one of the most popular dishes that's found in the UK. It's basically battered fish that's fried, and it's served with a side of fries, but in the UK they call fries chips, so fun to keep in mind. Our next stop is going to be Scotland. So exploring Scotland means the Edinburgh Castle, which is this really historic fortress that kind of dominates the skyline of Edinburgh. It was once the residence of the Scottish monarchs, and it stands 443 feet above sea level, and it overlooks the city of Edinburgh. It's basically sitting on top of a cliff, so it's kind of really cool to see it from the ground up, like when you're looking up and you just see this huge castle that's kind of towering over. Another thing about Scotland is Loch Ness. I'm sure everyone has heard of the Loch Ness Monster before. So it originated in Scotland, and basically Loch Ness is this huge lake in Scotland, in the Scottish Highlands, and someone created a myth that there is a Loch Ness Monster that lives in this lake, and they call her Nessie. So yeah, and there are people that have dedicated their lives to trying to find this monster. So there have been a few sightings like the one shown in the picture, but no one really knows if it's real or not. And the third thing about Scotland is haggis, which is the national dish of Scotland. It's basically a type of pudding that consists of sheep's heart, liver, and lungs, but it's mixed with beef and like other spices like onions and things like that. So if you're an adventurous eater and you want to try it, I would recommend trying it. So yeah. And then we're off again. And next we are going to be exploring Ireland. And exploring Ireland would mean seeing the cliffs of Moher, which are sea cliffs that run for 14 kilometers, and they're on the west coast of Ireland. This is a really popular tourist place in Ireland, and there are many folklore stories that kind of surround the cliffs of Moher. They're kind of stories about ancient Irish legends, which is really cool. And another thing about Ireland to go visit is the Trinity College Library. So this library serves Trinity College and the University of Dublin, and it's one of the largest libraries in Ireland. And something kind of really cool about this library is that it has a long room, which is basically houses 200,000 of like the Ireland's oldest books. So this library is really old and really historic. So it'd be cool to visit. And then the third thing is Irish stew, which is a lamb and root vegetable stew, which is native to Ireland. It doesn't have to be lamb, it can also be beef, but it's basically with potatoes and carrots and onions. So it's very hearty. So if you like stew, that's definitely something you should try in Ireland. And our last stop of the day, we are going to be exploring Wales. So exploring Wales means something called Snowdonia National Park, which is a mountainous region in northwestern Wales. Something kind of native to Wales is that they have a lot of national parks and they have a lot of really nice nature and landscapes. Honestly, the really beautiful landscape is kind of what makes Wales a nice place to go and visit. Another thing about Wales is one of their foods called the Welsh Rarebit, which is basically a combination of melted kind of cheese sauce and toasted bread. In the 18th century, this dish was first called a Welsh rabbit, but then they changed the name to rarebit because this dish does not have rabbit in it. And then we also have Welsh cakes, which are basically a mix between pancakes and biscuits. So they kind of just contain like flour, butter, eggs, milk, and spices. So we do have on our website on the Explore session page for the UK, we have a recipe for Welsh cakes if you want to try and cook them. I think they'd be really good. So yeah, now that we've kind of looked at what it's like to live or kind of explore the UK, now we're kind of going to switch over and look at what it's like to study in the UK. So the first thing we're going to look at is language. When you're studying in the UK, there isn't a language barrier because in the UK, the primary language is English. Sometimes in Wales, you might hear Welsh, or in Scotland, you might hear Scots Gaelic, but for the most part, you'll be speaking English. The one thing that might be a little bit difficult to kind of navigate is just the different accents. You will notice that, say, in England or Scotland, in different regions, it will still be an English accent, but it will sound a bit different if you live in the south or the north or in the middle. And they're also in different accents. There's different slangs and different words mean different things. Like, for example, a cart is called a trolley for them, and just little things like that. So the next thing we're going to look at is the currency exchange. So in England, Scotland, and Wales, they use pound sterling. So £1 sterling is about $1.75. And in Ireland, they use euros. So €1 equals about $1.56. Something that my mom kind of told me when I had gone to England was she kind of advice was, if you're going to get something in England, just kind of think of it as being double the amount. So if I was buying something for £10, it will be about $17. So kind of that was my way to navigate how much money I was actually spending when I was over there. So another way that we kind of like to navigate the currency exchange is by doing a cup of coffee. So in England, Scotland, that should say Wales, but in Wales, it is about £1.30, and in Ireland, it's about £2.50 or €2.50, I guess. In Ireland, coffee is a little bit more expensive than England, Scotland, and Wales. And wrong way. And another thing to note is the cost of living in the UK is a bit more expensive than Canada. So it's definitely important to keep in mind when you're planning for your trip and budgeting how much rent is going to cost and how much food might cost. When we look at the cost of living in the UK compared to the rest of Europe, Ireland sits at number 4, which is pretty high, and then the UK sits at number 7. The next thing that we're going to look at is scholarships. So in student financial services, we do offer scholarships and bursaries. There's also BUTEX, which offers scholarships to students going abroad for either 1 semester or 2 semesters in this region. So if you do apply and get accepted for the scholarship, more information on how much money and all the logistics of it will be provided to you. And the next thing we're going to look at is the credit system. So in the UK, they use the European credit transfer system. So 2.5 U of G credits equals about 60 European credit transfer system. So basically, in most cases, you'll be taking 4 courses at once, which is similar to University of Guelph. Sometimes you'll be taking 4 to 5 courses a semester, but it will only be 1 course at a time. I went to University of Southampton, so at my school, most of the courses were 15 European credit transfer system, which means that I would have been taking 4 courses. But then there are some courses that are 30 European credit transfer system, and then in those cases, you would only need to be taking 2 courses to fulfill your semester of credits. So for this region, the semester dates are pretty standard across the UK. So usually their fall semester is September to December, and their spring semester is January to May. It's kind of important to keep in mind the semester dates when you're going abroad because say you go for the winter semester and you have a job for the summer lined up starting in May, but then you're still in school during the month of May. So it's just kind of important to keep in mind when you're picking a school to go abroad. So this is our website, uoguelph.ca/CIP, to find out more about our study abroad programs. So if you click, if you kind of scroll down a bit, you'll see study abroad program search. So if you click that, you're going to come to this page, which is basically your page to kind of find programs that you want to go on exchange to. So you can put in things like field of study, the semester, language of instruction, regions. I think what's most important from this page is the semester and region and country, language of instruction. Field of study, when you go to their specific school page, you'll see kind of what kind of fields of study they offer. So I wouldn't stress too much about field of study for this part. And then each partner school that we have will come up as a page like this, and it gives you a lot of information about what a full-time credit thing will be. So will it be 30 European credit transfer systems? Will it be 60? It gives you the semester dates, and it gives you fields of study, language of instruction, the kind of abroad experience it is. So is it exchange? Is it field school? I think this step when you're kind of picking schools is really important, at least I found. Like, I think it's really important to kind of look at the schools, look at their semester dates, find out if they have all the right courses for you, and that's going to make it a lot easier when you're filling out the application and you have to pick your 5 schools that are your top 5 to go to. This step will make it like 10 times easier because you'll basically already have all of your schools kind of picked out for you. So yeah, we have a bunch of different partners. So in Wales, we have this university, which I do not know how to pronounce. In Ireland, we have the Dublin Institute of Technology. In Scotland, we have the Glasgow Caledonian University, University of Dundee, University of Stirling, University of Aberdeen, and University of Strathclyde. And then in England, we have Nottingham Trent University, Royal Agricultural University, Oxford Brookes University, Loughborough University, University of East Anglia, University of Birmingham, Essex, Liverpool, Northumbria University in Newcastle, University of Lincoln, University of Exeter, the University of Manchester, and University of Southampton is where I went. So yeah, I am not sure if our student Alea is here yet. If she is, we have a bunch of questions that we want to ask her. I don't know if she's here yet.
Hey Jess, I think Leah's just trying to get on the call. We'll see if we can get her on here. If not, we do have a question here in the chat that I will just have you answer to get us started. So it says, our programs offered pretty specific, like if you're in biomed, is it okay as long as the school offers other science programs? So maybe I'll actually answer that question. So I think it'll depend on if a student has flexibility in their degree. So if you have electives left, or if you have core courses that you have to take, that'll kind of determine which schools are going to be an option for you. So if you're looking to take biomed credits that are going to specifically transfer back to your biomed courses here at Guelph, you're going to have to work with your program counselor, use the program search tool to find a school that's going to offer courses that are related to that. If you have more flexibility and you're able to take courses like maybe just general chemistry courses or other science type courses, then of course, if the school offers that, then you're welcome to take those options. I hope that kind of answers the question, Daniel's question. If you have any other follow-up questions regarding that, please feel free to send them in the chat. And Jess, while I try and get Leah on the call, maybe you can talk about like why you decided to study abroad, how you chose Southampton, and start there.
Sure. So traveling is always something that I've loved to do. And kind of my reason for studying abroad was I obviously really wanted to go abroad and study there. But when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to do one of those summer, take a course for a month in summer abroad kind of experiences. And I didn't apply to that because I was holding out for a summer job, which I didn't end up getting. So I was very upset because I didn't get that job and I didn't get to go abroad to I think I was going to go to Italy, to be honest, which would have been really nice. So then when I had gotten here, I already knew when I first started university that I wanted to study abroad, and I just wasn't going to I guess stop until I got that because I had kind of pushed away the experience that I could have had. So I really wanted this one. I had a really good experience studying abroad. I was actually abroad this winter semester, which is when kind of COVID happened. Before the 2 months that I was there, I had a really good experience. I met a lot of really cool people. And from the University of Guelph, there was a group of 4 of us. So we had met up before our exchange started and we were able to get on the same flight going there. We all kind of, the way my residence worked was there was almost like a complex and there's a lot of different buildings. So we were all in different residence buildings, but we were still in the ssame complex. So it was easy to make new friends, but also kind of keep those old friends, which made it a lot more comfortable, especially when traveling, because you know people that you're traveling with. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. If there's more questions.
Yeah, I have another question here. It says, when we choose universities to study abroad at, how likely are we to get our first choice? Do you know how to answer that, Jess, or do you want me to take it?
I think you can take that one.
Okay, I got this one. So when we're placing students, we do our best to place them in their first choice. And when we're going through the process, we have to consider whether or not it's a competitive location. So our students, like if we have 2 spots available, do we have 2 students applying, or do we have 5, 6, however many students? If it's a competitive location, then we're going to place students who have the highest average first. So the higher your average, the higher or the better chance you are to get your first choice. That being said, a lot of students will ask, how do we know which locations are competitive? And that will depend on like our placements and how many spots we have available. So at the beginning of December each year, we release a document that's going to show you how many spots we have available at each university. But I can tell you that places like Australia and some of the places in England tend to be popular destinations, so they can be competitive. We do our best to place as many students in their first choice as possible, but why we ask for 5 options is so that we can give you something that's of interest to you. And if we can't give you your first option, we do our best to give you your second, and so on and so forth. If for some reason we can't give you one of your top 5 options, that doesn't mean we're not going to place you. It means we're going to reach out to you and ask, are there any other options available, and like how can we find a program that's going to work for you? So we do try our best. I know it's hard to place so many students who apply, but another point I will clarify on that is students do apply or rank their top 5 options, and a lot of students ask if they're going to get more than one acceptance. We're only going to place you into one spot and give you one offer, so keep that in mind. But let's say you're like Jess and maybe you wanted to go to Italy for a summer program, but you also want to go to the UK on an exchange during the fall semester. You can check off a box on the online application that mentions that you want to be accepted into more than one program, which will allow you to get an offer for, let's say, a summer program and a semester exchange program.
Can I add on to that information real quick?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So just in like my experience, when I was picking my kind of top 5 schools, I made an effort to kind of not pick the schools that were too competitive, because I just really wanted to go abroad, and I wanted to kind of maximize like my chances. So most of the schools that I picked had at least 6 or more spots. I didn't really pick any schools that only had 1 or 2 spots, just so that there was like a more of a chance that I would get placed in one of my top 5 schools. So yeah.
Oh, it looks like we have Aaliyah here with us now. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Yeah, so maybe we will pass it over to Aaliyah and Jess, and we'll kind of get them to talk about how Aaliyah's experience and how students can, or what students can expect when they study abroad in the UK. Jess, if you want to go ahead and...
Oh, I thought Aaliyah was going to introduce herself. Yeah, if you want to just quickly introduce yourself so that everyone kind of knows who you are.
Yeah, I was about to do that and I realized my microphone was on mute. So my name is Aaliyah. I'm currently a student at the University of Hertfordshire. I did a study abroad placement at Guelph last year. So any questions, I'm willing to answer them. Any study abroad related questions or any questions regarding to studying in the UK.
Awesome. So in the beginning of the presentation, I kind of went through a bunch of different, I guess, sites to see around the UK and different cultures. And I wanted to ask you, like, how would you think the culture is in the UK, and like what would students expect when they go to the UK to kind of do their study abroad?
Okay. The culture in the UK is, I would say, is pretty much similar to that of Canada. It's very multicultural. Like you can fit in no matter where in the UK you go to. People here are very friendly and very accepting of new cultures. So it'll be easy to fit in no matter like what you want to explore or what culture you're from.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome. And then something else that I was kind of talking about was just different sites, like say Buckingham Palace or like the Edinburgh Castle. And I was wondering if there were any places that you visited around there that kind of stood out to you that maybe other students would benefit from visiting if they were to come to the UK.
Well, first of all depends on like where in the UK you go to, because like there's just it's a lot of places that you can go to. Where I'm currently like living in London, so Buckingham Palace is a must if you come to London. There's also like the Stonehead. We have really nice beaches, even though like the water is freezing cold, but they're very good sites. So if you're a lover of taking photographs, then the beaches are absolutely a must go. Um, we have a lot of like mountainous sites further up north and also in Wales. But once again, it also depends on like where you go. Have a lot of restaurants if you're a foodie, especially in London. So the places that you can go are endless.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I went to the Buckingham Palace too, and it was like one of my favorite places to visit.
Yeah, definitely. It's an amazing city. Like so many things you can do in London as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was talking about earlier in the presentation also was language. So obviously, like the UK is primarily like an English language speaking, but do you think you have any advice or information on kind of navigating the different accents that are around the UK? Maybe even just some, I know there's some different words that like mean different things in Canada versus British. So maybe if you want to comment on some things.
Um, it is from my experience, 90% of the time, the words that you say in Canada mean the same thing that they do in the UK. But I'd say like if you don't understand something, don't be afraid to say like, can you repeat that or ask what it means, because a lot of time people won't actually be offended, because especially if you're like coming from a foreign country, they won't be offended if you don't understand their accent. So generally, like just as a huge, just don't be like, what did I say? Just don't worry about what they think if you ask them like to repeat something, because a lot of like the accents in the UK are a bit difficult to understand. Like even me being a UK citizen, I don't understand some of them. So don't be afraid to ask someone like what it means or like to repeat or something like that.
Nice. That's very good to know. Very helpful. Okay, I guess the next question that I kind of want to ask is like, what made you decide to study abroad, like in Canada specifically?
I don't know. Like my decision was between Canada and America, but in the end, I ended up going with Canada after having a very long and extensive conversation with my parents. But I specifically chose the University of Guelph because I knew it was like big on nutrition and food science. So that kind of like steered my decision into going to Canada. And also I have family in Canada, so I thought if anything happens, I'll be safe.
Yeah, that's so good.
Sorry, Jess, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in here. Olia, I noticed that you mentioned that you talked to your parents and like they helped you kind of work through the decision. And I think that's a good point. Studying abroad can be a big decision and a big kind of life event. It's So getting input from the people around you can be a great decision. So Jess, like when you decided to study abroad, did you consult anybody else? Did you talk to your friends or your family, or how did you make your decision to study abroad?
So I actually, same thing. It was kind of a very long, extensive talk with my parents. But for the most part, my parents were kind of really pushing for me to go because they just knew how badly I wanted to go abroad. But we obviously kind of talked about a lot of things like budgeting and which semester would be best for me to be going, just kind of what would work best for our family. And I also actually, my brother has kind of a close friend who my mom and his mom have kind of become really close. And she's actually from England. So she was kind of pushing for me to go to England too. And she also, which was really nice of her, had said that her brother is still living in England. So if I were to have any issues or like I needed, you know, someone a bit close to home, that they would be open to kind of like help me out if I ever needed anything. So that was really nice of them. So yeah. Okay, and then I guess another thing that I wanted to ask Aaliyah was we were kind of talking about the cost of living and how it's a bit more expensive to be living in the UK. So I was just wondering if you kind of want to comment on the difference between maybe like rent and food prices between like Canada and the UK, or like what you've noticed is more expensive.
Okay. I think in terms of university living is in the UK is a bit more expensive than Canada, but in terms of like groceries and food shopping and having like a social life is somewhat cheaper because our tax is included in the price of the item. So whatever price you see on the item is that's exactly what you pay. So it works out a bit cheaper in my opinion. And we have like loads of like budget supermarkets where you can go, and they're all like located close to universities and targeted to university students. So grocery shopping way cheaper than in Canada, but on campus living, if you really want to live on campus, it's somewhat expensive, and also prices kind of differ depending on like what university you go to and which part of the UK you go to. So for me, um, in my first year at the university, I had a shared accommodation because most of the accommodation in the UK is all like ensuite accommodations, most of it. So they're all kind of expensive. But for me, my first year, I had a double room where I shared with another student, which makes it way cheaper. So if budgeting and like having like a affordable accommodation is what you want, I would say like go for the shared rooms. But if you want your own space, it just means that you have to spend a little bit more money.
Awesome. So you would recommend then for say students that are going abroad, would you recommend that they live in on campus kind of residence, or that they find a different kind of accommodations?
If they can afford it, I would say definitely go on campus because it helps you to build up your social life and meet new people, and then those people could actually help you to explore the UK. Because like in my first year, I did stay in a room with a foreign student, and we actually became really good friends, and we went to places together. Like I helped her like to navigate around the university, around the area. We went like Buckingham Palace together. We visited museums and stuff together. So it's a good opportunity for you to meet people and to actually like gain skills from each other, if that makes sense, and also to someone who could actually help you to show you around the UK or the area or wherever you're actually staying.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And then I guess like going back to your abroad, like here in Canada, what were kind of some tips that you made for yourself with like building a social circle, and like did you get involved in any activities like within the school to kind of meet friends and things like that?
Yeah, for me, like the study abroad fair that you guys had at the beginning of the year, like the welcome event, that really made me like put me out of my comfort zone, and I made quite a few friends during that time, people that I thought I do still keep contact with. So I'd say like just put yourself out there and just know that a lot of the times that people are in the same situation that you're in. So just make yourself like just be open minded, and you literally like once you actually start like communicating with new people, you start to realize that you're going out more, your social life is just a lot more. So I'd say just put yourself out there in the beginning, and then once you do that, then everything else just kind of flows and just goes into perspective. And also like don't be afraid to go out with people. Like I remember that was my biggest fear, like meeting friends and like going out. And I thought, because I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I thought like I won't meet anyone and I'll just be lonely. But the fact that the event that you guys had made me meet new people from like so many different cultures, and I learned so much from like different people. Just hanging out with them and going different places, I really learned a lot about myself and a lot about other people and their cultures.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that too. When I had first I was at University of Southampton. I was super worried that I wasn't going to make any friends, but I had to kind of force myself to like, go out there and kind of go into all these different exchange events that the university had planned. And that's how I met a lot of my kind of exchange friends. So I agree. Definitely get out there and step out of your comfort zone.
And also, like the University of Guelph, they had a lot of like clubs and societies. Put yourself out, and then if something interests you, just go for it. Don't hold back. Just join it, and you actually won't regret it.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And then I did want to ask you a question about like, I guess stereotypes. Like, do you think when you had came into Canada, were there any stereotypes that like you faced being like someone from England? Does that make sense?
I think the only stereotype was like the slangs, because a lot of people know that the London slangs, but I don't actually use them. So everyone, could you say this, or how do you say this in British? And I'm like, well, we speak English. British is not actually a language; it's just English. So I think the main stereotype was just the accent and like the slangs. Like people just kind of automatically assumed that I knew all the slangs that they heard about or seen in the media.
Yeah. And then what about if we like move it over to say your opinion on like Canadians in the UK? Like, do you think there's any stereotypes that like us Canadians should be aware of that maybe like English people have a stereotype on us when we go there, kind of thing?
Um, I was actually talking about this morning, but like it all depends on like if the group of people that you're like hanging out with know much about Canada. If not, then you won't really experience much. But just be aware that the Tim Hortons jokes are out there.
Yeah, I also did notice that a lot of when I was in the UK, a lot of people thought that I was American. Like they would just considered me like an American, even though I would always say that I'm Canadian. I guess maybe just that because the accent's the same, they just kind of get grouped together.
Yeah, yeah. But it all depends as well, because like some people who like they're kind of just arrogant and don't really know much, and they'll just group you in that category. But then there are others who actually know about the culture and are willing to really like mesh with you and understand more.
Yeah. And then another question I wanted to ask was, were there any specific places that you visited like in Canada that like stood out to you? Like, did you go to any other provinces, or did you just kind of stick to traveling? If you did, like, kind of just around Ontario and stuff.
Yeah, I did kind of stick to just Ontario. I did have plans to go other places, but obviously with all that went on, I
Yeah.
didn't actually got to go because I had plans to do them in the summer. But I did kind of just stick to Ontario. I did go like places like York, Mississauga, Brampton, just around that area. I did also go to Niagara Falls and like yeah, just like the main places that you you think of when you go to Ontario.
Yeah.
Nothing outside of that.
Awesome. And then I just want to check in with my CIP team. Are there any other questions that students have asked that they want answered in the chat?
No, we don't know.
Just gonna jump in and Jacqueline will address the chat box, but I just wanted to pick up on that last travel question. For you, Aaliyah, it's good to see you. Can you describe how easy it is or how challenging it might be to get around the UK? I know I took some overnight bus rides myself to go from London to Oxford. But is it relatively easy for an exchange student to kind of either hop on a cheap flight or take a train or take a bus to a different part of the UK?
Definitely. It's so easy to travel around the UK. There are coaches that you can book in advance or even just turn up on the day. I don't know how that is now, but like you can actually just jump on a coach. Might take forever, but you can take trains. That's the difference that I found with Canada and the UK. We have a very extensive train system that you can use to travel to wherever you want to go in the UK. So train is a big thing in the UK. You have buses everywhere. Some places more expensive than others, but if you're in London, it's obviously much cheaper to travel by bus. But yeah, traveling around the UK is very easy.
I found that as well.
Sorry. Is there a
Go
specific
ahead.
travel method that you find is the best? Like, would you recommend coach over train or flying, or like, what do you think is the best one for just, I guess, university students who are going abroad to kind of travel around?
It depends on like where you're traveling to, but if you're traveling like a regular travel, I'd say train, but also train for like long distance travels because it's somewhat cheaper and much faster. Coach is like one of the cheapest options, but it takes very long. So if you're traveling back and forth with through the town around the university, obviously bus or a lot of stuff are like close by, so you can really walk or sometimes even share cabs with your friends. But yeah, traveling outside of the university area, definitely train or coach.
Awesome. Yeah, I found that. I think coach kind of worked better for me and my friends when we were traveling because it was just a lot easier, and we had a coach station that was really close to like the town, like where we were staying. So.
Yeah, it also depends on like the university that you're going to, because I know Southampton, the coach system is way like very much easier to travel on coach, but like at my university we're literally like 10 minutes away from the train station, so it's so much easier to travel by train.
Yeah.
Different universities have different like accessibility.
Right, yeah. I see. Mike, was there anything else that you wanted to ask?
Yeah,
add?
sure. Aaliyah, you picked up on the point that when you were abroad on exchange, you learned so much about yourself. So I'm always interested in what that actually means in terms of what you learned about yourself. And maybe if you could talk about that from a cultural standpoint, and then maybe Jess, if you have something you wanted to add on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would say like it really has built my confidence in such a way, because I always viewed myself as being more of an introvert and like always kind of staring away from people. But when I actually went to Canada and started to like exploring new things and kind of like just building relationships with people from literally all over the world, I kind of built myself while doing that, because like I learned a lot about myself in terms of like I have more confidence than I actually think I do. So that kind of pushed me forward in like building relationships with others and actually trying to make friends in that sort of way. In terms of like a cultural aspect, it's more like I was very open with my culture because I'm actually Jamaican living in the UK. So like, if anyone asked me like where I was coming from, I would say I'm coming from Jamaica, but I'm actually coming from the UK. But I learned a lot about my culture as well as like coming from the UK, because I had to share a lot about the UK when people ask me like where I'm from and they ask me questions about the UK. And sometimes I don't even know what they're talking about, but I had to like kind of step back for a minute and say, okay, I'm actually from the UK and this is what the UK is like. But yeah, like, it opened up my mind in terms of like the difference in cultures across the world and also somewhat similarities as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you pick up a good point. I think it's something that a lot of people experience when they get out of their comfort zone. It builds that confidence, and then once they leave a familiar place, it kind of gives them this opportunity to look back at what it means to be from the UK, for example. Jessica, what about you in terms of your experience?
I think I would have to agree that confidence is one of the big kind of like realizations that I had. I like have always kind of thought of myself as a more outgoing person, but I think it's different when you're around people that you've kind of known your whole life versus going to somewhere completely different. And I was really nervous that because I had gone into the UK with 3 friends from Guelph, just because like we kind of became friends before we went on our exchange, and I was nervous that I was just gonna like not go out and kind of go out of my comfort zone and meet new people, because I had this comfortable group of this 4 of us that we had created. And then yeah, like I guess just my confidence kind of blossomed through as I, went to events and met different people. And also confidence not necessarily within just talking to people, but I'm super, super bad with my directions. Like my directional sense is not there. But just being able to like, trust, I don't know, gut instincts and like be able to plan trips and travel solo sometimes. Like I think that is something that was a huge takeaway for me just coming back here, like, being more confident, kind of driving to new places I've never been before, or like, traveling alone. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts about traveling is trying to get from A to B and actually like navigating the subway system, or like trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to connect from the bus to the train. And I think that it's part of the fun for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. But I remember when I had gone, so we had gone to London as a little day trip just once. And then a couple weeks later during reading week, some of my friends from high school came and visited me. And it was just like, just from one experience, I had to like force myself to go back down to London on my own and basically like visit them and travel solo. But like, I felt so comfortable just because you just step out of your comfort zone, you just do it. And then you feel better after and you did it. So, yeah.
Jacqueline, is there anything you wanted to add at this point in the presentation?
Actually, just going off the same topic, I was going to add that so when I was studying abroad in the UK, I took a trip with some friends to Edinburgh, and when we were traveling as a group, my friends decided that they didn't want to go to the Christmas markets that were happening, but it was something that was important to me. So I went out on my own and I did my own thing, and I'm glad that I did, because that's one of my favorite memories from my time in Scotland. But then I also was able to go to Ireland when I was on exchange, and something that my friend really wanted to do was go see some Irish dancers. And so she found out this opportunity where you got dinner and you got to see Irish dancing. And even though it was something that I would never choose to do for myself, I just kind of went along with it because my friends wanted to go. And that was one of the highlights of my trip to Ireland. So I think when you're studying abroad, you can find this balance of kind of trying out new opportunities, putting yourself out there, doing things with your friends, but also keeping in mind what's important to you and doing things that you want to do, and making time for yourself as well. So I think it's a good balance to keep. And then I think I'll pass it off to Jess. Oh, wait, 1 second. We have one more question. Is it possible to study abroad for your final year of university and stay in whatever? Okay, so the question is if you can study abroad in your final year or final semester and then continue to stay in that country. What our program offers is your semester abroad you're studying, you are able to go in your final semester or your final year. It'll take a little bit of extra planning to make sure you get all of your degree requirements and make sure you're able to graduate on time. In terms of staying afterwards, that's something where you're going to have to look into the visa requirements, and because each country is different, it's not something that we can really coach you on. But there are, if you look at the Government of Canada travel.gc.ca, they have a great website in terms of figuring out visa requirements, or at least finding a link to get you the information that you need in terms of a work visa or how you can stay longer. So I would encourage you to kind of do some more research on that on your own. And now I'm going to pass it off to Jess to kind of wrap things up here.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank Aaliyah for coming and kind of chatting about your experiences and what it's like to live in the UK. Is there anything else maybe you just want to add as a final note to our students that are considering studying abroad?
Just be open-minded. Like, go for it. If it's something you really want to do, go for it. Just be mindful of like the countries that you choose to go to and the cultural difference. But other than that, if you want to do it, definitely go for it, because I was apprehensive about it at first and I went through it, and honestly, it's been an experience, a life-changing experience at that. So put your best foot forward. If you want to do it, just go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And then I guess just to wrap up, so if you are interested in studying abroad, the steps are first that you have to attend an info session, which because of COVID, we're doing it online on CourseLink. So the way you would get involved to do that is send an email to CIP, which we have listed here at cip@uoguelph.ca, and they'll get you all registered for the CourseLink site. The application process opens in December, and for that, you are going to be picking 5 school choices that you would want to study abroad in. And then the application is due January 29th. So we are taking applications for summer 2021, fall 2021, and winter 2022. Obviously, things are a little bit different right now due to COVID, but we are still going through the application in the hopes that things will get better, and then study abroad opportunities will continue in the future. So we're asking that you still kind of continue on with your applications. And on our end, we're going to continue monitoring the situation and the travel guidelines based on what the Government of Canada is telling us to do. We always want to make sure that student safety is our top priority. So that's kind of, we always want to just make sure that students are being safe. And then that's how we decide if we're going to cancel or postpone or continue with our study abroad. We do have a frequently asked questions site about COVID on our website. So if you have questions about COVID and study abroad, you can go there to check out the frequently asked questions. And just for a reminder, we do have our Europe 2 session coming up next Thursday at 2:30 p.m. And we're going to be looking at Italy, Malta, Spain, Switzerland, and Austria. So if you're interested about those study abroad opportunities, I would go check that out next Thursday. And that's it. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to hear from you all very soon.